By the way, the truth about Ozzy Osbourne and the bat is a whole lot more complicated than you've been led to believe. I'm waiting for Gerald Posner to write a book about that. Biting the Bat, Gerald Posner. There you go. There's the title for you. Biting
Yeah,
the
I
Bat.
love it. I love the idea, Rich, that you come up with the title, and then all I have to do is sort of fill in the book. But I like it.
Because that's the easy part, filling the book. The hard part's
you
the
know,
title.
it is. Let me tell you, 9 times out of 10, the title will stump you, no doubt.
Great to have you back on the show, my friend. Of course, award-winning investigative writer, journalist, best-selling author. You wrote a book years ago called "Killing the Dream" about the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., James Earl Ray, and the assassination of Dr. King. Killing the Dream. And now that the MLK files have been declassified, I said, I got to go to you and get your take on this because I know, unlike other people, you're actually going to take the time to review the files that are declassified. And the rest of us just don't have the time for that. We can come up with creative titles, but not actually do the work. Uh, so have you had a chance to really digest the files?
Yeah, I know I'm getting slower as I'm getting older. I'm probably about 50,000 pages through, which is a
That's
lot.
it?
Uh,
Only
yeah,
50,000
only
pages, Gerald Posner? It's been
50,000,
two
right?
days.
It's hard to believe, right? I should be doing all-nighters and be able to read faster. I saw a quote, as a matter of fact, the other day in a newspaper article about David Garrow, who's an historian who's written about Martin Luther King, and he says, I see nothing new in these. And I thought, man, is he a speed reader? Because, it takes a while. I'm looking through it and trying to do it by groups, the things that I think will be most interesting. It's just for anybody out there who thinks about this, not only is it 250,000 pages, but the way the government dumps it, they put it out in PDF forms that are not searchable. So you have to open up every file and then either convert it by OCR so it's searchable, or you have to be able to try to read it. And I'd say 20% of these files, Rich, are so bad in terms of quality, legibility. They're not easy. You can't put them into an AI machine or something and say, by the way, tell me what's in them, because it can't read most of them. Your eyes are getting blurry just to try to go through them. So it's a challenge, to say the least.
I understand. And so you got to be selective then in terms of what you're looking for, so to speak. But you don't know necessarily what you're looking for. But I'm sure
Well,
that you had some starting points, right?
yeah. So the starting point for me are the FBI files, because
Mhm.
more than anything else, let me tell you, with King, we know that J. Edgar Hoover, then head of the FBI, hated Martin Luther King, thought he was at least a communist sympathizer. I mean, people who are young and only think of Martin Luther King as a national holiday and celebrate it have no idea how controversial he was in his time. He was a great civil rights leader who led a peaceful sort of, revolution to be able to change our view of racial inequality. But at the same time, the FBI thought that there were communist advisors around him, that they were hardcore, that he was being misled by them. And Hoover thought he was a threat. And as a result, the FBI broke the law repeatedly on King. They had an RFK, Robert Kennedy Jr., was Attorney General at the time, knew about it, tried to put a stop to it after a couple of years, but for a couple of years it ran wild, and it was surveillance, telephone taps, video surveillance. And there are, in these files, full pages that are still redacted and blacked out. I would think some of those are the most salacious parts, the sort of the summaries from FBI agents about details of King's visits to, times like brothels, names of people who were with him, names of his friends. There were rumors of children out of wedlock. There was all types of salacious material. And it's one of the reasons the King family didn't want all these out, because it has nothing to do with the assassination necessarily, but has a lot to do with his legacy. And so I've been looking through these FBI files. It just is a reminder of when the FBI, any government agency like that, gets unchecked power and they start to come after you. Boy, I tell you, you just have to, hope for the best, because they broke every rule when it came to MLK.
And it wasn't just him, right? I mean, there were other people at the time, Aretha Franklin and
Right.
others as well, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it was not just King. You're right. There's a whole list, and when it came out in the 70s, this Contralpo program, the Merkin files, as they called them, and how much they had gotten away with. Hoover at this time looking at all types of people. And you're right, like Aretha Franklin and others, that we would think of how the hell did they ever put them on a suspect list. But I think King is one of those that we focus on. At least I do as an investigator so much because he has become a national holiday. He is
Sure.
revered today in many ways. And you think, boy, you forget where it was at one point. The other thing is he got assassinated. So it's a fair question as an investigator to ask the question, hey, did some FBI agents who knew how much the boss hated King say, I'll take care of this problem for you? Did they allow James Earl Ray, a racist, who was trying to collect a bounty of $50,000 on King's head, which is what I believe, did they allow him to get close to King? Those types of issues. In the end, there's no evidence of that. Hoover knew. J. Edgar Hoover may have been a tough FBI director who was at times did some terrible things, but he was smart enough to know that he wanted to disgrace King. He wanted to bring him down in his own time by unfurling all this personal salacious material around him, and he would lose his reputation. He knew that by killing King, he would turn him into a national holiday, if that made sense. So He didn't want King dead. He wanted him destroyed publicly and sort of disgraced.
Who was James Earl Ray, for those that don't know, and how did he end up in London?
Well, that's the part everyone says, come on, a guy who's a four-time loser, comes from this extremely poor, like a 100-year criminal history of the Ray family. His great-grandfather was hanged as part of this gang that used to, rob and kill people on bank robberies. His uncle went to prison big time. His father was a con. Both of his brothers were, felons. He went away repeatedly, and then he's put in for the fourth time into one of the toughest prisons around Jeff City in Missouri, and he escapes in 1967. He's on the lam, and he goes to Canada. He goes down to Mexico, where he's dealing in like marijuana, maybe in heroin, but most likely just in weed. He's keeping himself alive. He goes out. He's traveling around the country, on the lam. Gets to L.A., where he gets a nose job at some point. So some people say, oh, maybe he was already planning, to lose people in terms of the way he looked. But he went to the Arthur Murray dance courses and took dance lessons a few months before he went to kill King. He went and got a bartending license. There's a picture of him. It looks like a tuxedo. It's actually a bartending outfit, and he closes his eyes at the moment the picture's taken with his diploma, because he doesn't really want people to identify him that easily. And then a month later, he's like following King because his brothers have told him about this bounty on King's head. And for a guy like Ray, who was an ex-con who grew up super poor, what we call white trash in the old days when it was politically, you weren't incorrect to say something like that, but the poorest part of white America in Alton, Illinois, and that the only people lower on the totem pole than people like the Ray family and the Ray brothers were blacks. And so he had this denigrating view of blacks that, collecting a bounty to take out someone like Martin Luther King wasn't that big of a jump for him. And where did he try to get to? He tried to get to Rhodesia or South Africa, which were white-run minority governments then. He didn't have the money to get there, so he went to London instead. He got to Canada, where he knew how to move around. He'd been there previously when he escaped a year earlier from prison, and he had enough money to buy a ticket to London. And from there, he's trying to get down to Rhodesia in South Africa. And finally, he's caught at Heathrow when he's trying to leave London. So he's a clever guy, but not clever enough to finally get away with it.
One of the questions I think a lot of people have is, how did he escape the day of the assassination?
So on the assassination itself, it turns out to be easier than you can imagine. It's a pretty rundown area where Martin Luther King was, this hotel, Lorraine Motel, and Ray checked into a flop house, as they used to call it, that was sort of an itinerant house you'd pay for by the hour. And he actually set up his sniper's nest in the one bathroom that all of those like little shared rooms would work there, locked the door, and in the bathtub set up the shot that he took of King, which was one shot straight across on a good rifle, high power scope, and it's a deadly shot. And then he leaves that, throws the rifle away, gets in his Mustang, which he has, which is his prized possession, and he then recounts later how he drives on back roads from Memphis back to Atlanta, because it's in Atlanta where he dumps his car that is his beloved possession in a public housing project, wipes it free of fingerprints, and gets on a bus that takes him overnight into Canada. So he's gone before anyone even realizes who he is. He's traveling on an alias then. He's got a number of aliases. He goes into Canada under a fake ID. Canada actually changed its immigration policy and was required to get a passport after 1968 because of what Ray had done to be able to move in there and then travel on to London.
Oh, no kidding. Interesting. Yeah. Wow. So Gerald Posner's with us, and we're talking about this. I mean, I'm glad, that these files are coming out, whether it's JFK, RFK, MLK.
Yeah.
I think we're all happy that, they're releasing all these things. I mean, there's still all these redactions. You're never going to satisfy people who believe there's some sort of a conspiracy there. We know the conspiracy theories around JFK. What is the conspiracy theory, if there is one, around the assassination of MLK? Was it the idea that the FBI would have been behind it?
Well, yes. I mean, that was the general theory, but then there was a specific one that came up actually at the time that I was writing this book around not quite 30 years ago, but in 1998, and that what I call the most powerful of the conspiracy theories on Ray convinced the King family that James Earl Ray was innocent. If you remember, Dexter King, King's son, went into prison before James Earl Ray died, shook his hand, and said, "We believe you. We think you're innocent." And the theory was this guy who owned a grill, just like a fast grill that was just a couple of doors down from the flop house from where Ray had shot King. His guy, Lloyd Jowers, said, "Oh, forget about Ray. It was me. I shot King, and I had these guys come to me and tell me to do it and everything else. They gave me the gun. I went in the back when all the people were inside my grill. I took the shot at King, and then I came back inside. This guy, Ray, was completely set up." Fantastic story. It's great. Jowers been interviewed before and everything else. Well, guess what? The Memphis district attorney, in reinvestigating the case because they said, "Oh my God, maybe it's true," and the King family believes it, they found out that Jowers, in these conversations that they intercepted, was trying to sell his story, thought he'd get $500,000 from a book publisher. He was talking to somebody about doing a movie on it. He's saying to the people that are trying to put it together, "Don't worry, no one will ever be able to tell this is fake," type of thing. The whole thing fell apart. But the King family has never backed off of the idea. I don't know if they still believe in Jowers, but they never backed off the idea that they think that there was the hand of the government involved in this. And I get it. If your father, your relative was the subject of this illegal campaign from the FBI at the highest levels like Hoover, who were trying to destroy him, yeah, I could understand how you would think that they must have gone ahead and done the next thing and then just killed him. So it's a very personal thing for the King family. I never criticize them for coming to that conclusion. I just think that they've been duped, and they were duped primarily by a lawyer who had represented James Earl Ray, of all people.
And is there anything in the files that would lend credence to their theory?
It's amazing. I've looked through everything I'm looking for on the FBI and everything else. I'm looking for all these files, and I'm doing word searches to the extent I can on Jowers to see if there's anything there. If somebody says, "Oh, by the way, did you see this?" His name is not even there so far. I can't find it in anything. So it's interesting to go through them and see what's not there. It's also interesting to find out, by the way, Rich, what is in there that you think to yourself, "Wow, did they get that wrong?" I'll give you one example. There's a CIA file in which they send it over to the FBI afterwards. The assassination takes place, and then they start to look through their files, the CIA, to see if they've got anything on this guy, Ray, or on any of the aliases he used, Galt and that. And they say, "Hey, this guy that we photographed going into the Cuban mission in Mexico City in October of 1967 or that, he looks like that guy, James Earl Ray." So they send a picture to the FBI saying, "Hey, We think that maybe this guy actually went to the Cuban mission in Mexico City in October of 67. Here he is. Now, let me tell you, I don't even think it looks anything like him. It's not Ray. He wasn't there. He was in Mexico, which is interesting, dealing weed in Acapulco and Puerto Vallarta at that point, but he's not in Mexico City. This is the same CIA that had sent 2 pictures after the Kennedy assassination of the guy who was supposed to be Oswald going into the Soviet mission in Mexico City in September of 63 and sent a guy who wasn't Oswald. So I love, it's sort of the same agency, same mistakes after 2 assassinations. You've got to get something right at some point. Now, if you look at this from a conspiracy, you say, I look at the CIA and I think incompetence. I can't believe they keep getting this stuff wrong. If you think it's a conspiracy, you think, they must just be doing that to let everybody mislead them down the wrong path. I just don't think they're that clever.
Gerald Posner is with us, and it's always great to have him. You have a piece you wrote, skeptic.com, The CIA, JFK, and the Fiction Factory, The Illusion of a Smoking Gun. You just published this a couple days ago. Actually, today, I'm sorry, it just came out today, a few hours ago, I should say. So you've now gone through all the JFK files that have been released. You've written the book Case Closed on this. You're going through the MLK files. I assume you've gone through the RFK files as well. What is the connection here to all of this? And is it the incompetence that leads people to keep saying this? Is it the government that keeps all this stuff secret from us? Is it all these things that come together that make people say, even when all these documents are released, oh, give me a break, they're all those redactions. I mean, because you're never, ever going to change. It seems to me like in this day and age, you're not going to change people's minds.
Right. Right. I agree with that. And Rich, here's the part that's amazing, is the documents came out. And so, for instance, we've been waiting for a long time to get a file on a CIA officer who was handling these anti-Castro Cubans in Miami at the time, this guy called George Joanides. And some people thought for a while, he's the guy. He's the key to the whole thing. He's running Operation Oswald. He must be the guy who put Oswald up in the sniper's nest, whatever. So the CIA hadn't delivered on that file. I signed a letter back in 2002 with other people like Norman Mailer and others, released the file. So the CIA, I hate how they hold on to stuff. They fight you for it. It's Cold War secrets, and they make everybody think it's a big thing. Now the file's finally released. Credit to Representative Luna on that, Anna Paulina Luna. She's great. She got it out. But the thing is, the people who thought for a long time that there's nothing in there. There's no mention of Oswald, no Operation Oswald. There's nothing about him. He finds out about Oswald after the assassination. But the people who thought for a long time that he would be key, they don't just drop the idea. Like you said, you can't convince them. So they say, well, there has to be more here. There's something here. There's something there. They're doing spin on it. And the Washington Post and Axios published articles that bought what they were saying hook, line, and sinker. So my complaint is not that the document comes out and doesn't show you. I don't expect people to read the document, but that the media, even the legacy media like the Washington Post, enhances the conspiracy theory because they don't do real journalism. They don't check it. Very quick example. Some of the people say, oh, in that file that was released, as a matter of fact, there was an anti-Castro Cuban who said that Oswald gave him a 2-page memo on infiltrating them before the assassination. They knew about him. The CIA agent would have known about him. Well, guess what? That guy, that Cuban, is now 83 years old. He was interviewed by the FBI in 63 and 64 and 67. The House Select Committee interviewed him in 78. He said, I never knew about Oswald till after the assassination. Now, all of a sudden, his memory's gotten better. And in 83, he tells a different story. The Washington Post doesn't even mention the fact that, he, under oath, had given completely different contradictory statements earlier. It's just bad journalism. So no wonder everybody thinks it's a conspiracy. Even when the documents come out and prove there's nothing there, it still gets spun as a conspiracy in press stories.
In your piece, you write that Anna Paulina Luna, Congresswoman Paulina Luna, deserves credit for raising a lot of these questions and getting that document released. But then you go on to say that's eclipsed by her rush to promote disproven conspiracy. So what is she still pushing at this point? Because I know that she's been very vocal in saying that, when these files come out, you're going to get the truth. It's going to show that the idea of a lone gunman is nonsense, basically, right?
So, and I agree. There's so many things that she does that I like on trans, on that whole thing about, trans ideology and the crazy things on gender and that. She's spot on. She's good on so many different issues. On this particular issue, I give her credit for using the Oversight Committee to force the CIA to come out with documents they should have given out decades ago. But then she doesn't just go to say, I think there's more there. She still gives that line that she thinks that Oswald's a patsy and there are multiple shooters. Now, I assure you, Rich, it's not just me reading the documents. There's nothing in anything that's come out recently that talks about multiple shooters. So she is sort of what I call bought into, prejudged the case before she waited for the documents to come out. She thinks that, it's the Oliver Stone type view of it. And look, there are a lot of people that will agree with her. I just think that when you're running the Oversight Committee, you've got to, what do I know about this? That's why she's in Congress and I'm not, but you have to stick closer to what the facts show. And she's really gone much farther than that.
Before I let you go, and we'll post a link to your story on this, is there anything in the RFK files? I mean, did Sirhan do it? And I never really paid much attention to that because there was evidence, right? I mean, there's video evidence of him shooting RFK, if I'm not mistaken, right? So it's kind of that one was not as complex, but anything in those files that would make anyone curious?
No. So a lot of the files are out still in, Los Angeles state case at the time, when it was brought in that. So not everything comes out in the federal files. But what you just said a second ago, Rich, is key, which is, think about this. You get the guy with the gun tackled at the scene after firing the shots that, fatally wound Robert Kennedy. You would think that's the end of it. But then over time, the story becomes, well, all those shots really didn't kill him. The shot that killed him was fired by a security guard who must have taken his, and he was part of a larger plot. So no wonder in the cases like Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy, when they're killed by people with a rifle shot from a distance and the assassins get away in the immediate aftermath of the shooting, no wonder the conspiracy speculation starts immediately, right? But in the case even of RFK, in which you're right, the question you think would become, was Sirhan doing it for himself or for somebody else? Eventually the theories get so large that Sirhan, by the way, he was part of a mind control program that the CIA had. He was given a special word and was in hypnosis and didn't even know what he did. When he woke up from it, he didn't remember anything. So he becomes an innocent patsy who was firing a pistol but didn't really know what he was doing.
I said last question, but last question. I mean, I think we all agree, and this is something you and I have talked about before, Gerald Posner, which is that the longer these things go on, the more ideas fester. And there's a lot of reasons to distrust our government. I mean, just think of everything
right.
Tulsi Gabbard, talked about today, for example.
Yep.
We are
Boy,
over a year
great
now.
On that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, unbelievable, right?
Just great. She's delivering. Anybody had like any thoughts about Tulsi or that? This is such a key and important issue. Sorry about that. Sorry about the sidelight. And I just think that what she's been laying out is critically important.
No, it is. It absolutely is. And bravo to her. And I mean, the idea that these people could think that they could get away with this is just, it's amazing. The hubris.
They might have gotten away with it if this administration didn't get in, was able to turn on that, sunshine, the spotlight, and look at the files and make them public and start to, they might have gotten away with it, which is really, the part. I get it. It should scare every American when you look at that and realize that, you talk about the politicization of, this system and weaponizing the entire process so you're going to retain power. It's the very worst of what happens in bad governments in third world countries and everything else. And it should be front page news across the board. We're obviously not going to see it covered in a lot of places, but it should be.
No, and you're seeing the legacy media now acting as if this is all a ruse to distract from Epstein, and it's shameful because they should be the ones jumping up and down and screaming this can't happen in a democracy, and yet they're not. They're trying to play defense here for Obama.
That's right. They're using Epstein as a shield. It's such a fake story because they've jumped onto. I don't mean look. I want to see the Epstein files as well. I want to see all the material out. But the way the legacy media is using it, they're using it as their like kryptonite shield against everything else, and so they'll harp on that to the exclusion of even the other day when the MLK files came out, which I thought was a fantastic thing, good for the administration. They're making it available. I was seeing on X people saying, the MLK files are a diversion from Epstein. They're just releasing material to keep you distracted. And I'm thinking to myself, you've got to be kidding. All right.
Yeah, no, look, I agree with you, my friend. Bravo to Tulsi. She's doing it. She's the right person for the job at the right time.
Yeah.
Like, thank God,
Yeah.
Thank God she's there. We'll have to talk again in the future. I know you're still trying to get information on Thomas Crooks. I know you still have your FOIA requests in, and you're still hitting roadblocks on that, right?
Boy, it's amazing to me that there isn't a full story out on Crooks, that we don't know the background of everything about him so far, and they're making it difficult to get. The more difficult they make it, the more suspicious I get.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Follow Gerald Posner on X and get his books, and we'll post a link to his latest piece at skeptic.com. Thanks, my friend. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Rich.